Welcome to Lemora's Cards and Horrors, the best store for all your gaming and haunting needs. I'm Matthew, and today we're doing another episode of Creatures in Graveyards, where I'm bringing in guests to talk about their favorite cards and their favorite horrors. Today I've got Trentyn with me. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Trentyn. I go by Trentyn907 on Twitter, where you can find me just like screaming into the void about EDH and things I love, but more loudly about things I don't love about the format. I also make proxies. I engage in the proxy discourse. So if you're anti-proxy, I'm sorry, but I'm probably one of the people telling you to just let
Yeah,
people
this is a
proxy.
very pro proxy channel, so
Yeah.
keep that in mind if you're going to keep watching here.
Yeah.
Okay, so talked a lot about Alien and horror in general.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the deck that you chose.
Yeah, so the deck I chose, this is Selvala Heart of the Wilds. This is my take on the competitive, the cEDH version of the deck, which is
Mhm.
normally called Selvala Brostorm. I don't know why it's Brostorm of all things,
I think
but
it's just like you play a lot of creatures and people just like play a lot of dudes, so they just call it bros.
yeah,
That's what I
like,
always
oh,
thought, because you're
like, dude,
storming off of
bro, yeah,
creatures. Like,
yeah. So I call it Selvala Sistorm. One, because Sylvala's a girl, but so
yeah,
is like every major combo piece:
yeah,
Ashaya, Aquarian Ranger, Priest of Titania.
mhm,
So this is Sylvala and the gals.
yeah,
For anyone who's not familiar, which I don't know, I mean, this is a card. So it was originally printed in Conspiracy. So pretty limited availability. Got reprinted in Jumpstart, which is
mhm,
actually what kickstarted my attention to it because I pulled one from a pack. She is a legendary elf, so obviously she can be your commander. She's a 2/3 for 1 green. She says whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. This does affect your opponents. Almost
mhm,
never matters in competitive because
yeah,
very few creatures are bigger than even Sylvala. You get occasionally like Ranger Captain of Eos and
yeah,
Mayhem Devils that are 3/3s, but and then for a single, you can pay a green and tap her and add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So I first pulled this car. I pulled her from. I don't remember if it was a mystery boost. I know there was a mystery booster in the realm of things around the time that I opened my Jumpstart pack and pulled
mhm,
Sylvala as well. Um, I just remember like staring at her and being like, okay, that's pretty cool. You can make a bunch of mana, like you can draw the occasional card. I was thinking of doing super dumb things like, play Colossal Dreadmaw and
yeah,
make Colossal Dreadmaw good in Commander, which will
mhm,
never happen. But uh so I started down this, I built this relatively like kind of mid power, like I wasn't playing anything super efficient. Most of
mhm,
like I was still playing like rampant growths and
yeah,
your commander staples, cultivates. I was running like no mana dorks. It was basically the game plan was just cast hopefully incrementally bigger creatures
mhm,
and win with like an overrun or an overwhelming stampede. And then not too long after, it was probably like 3 or 4 months after I had kind of built the original version of the deck, there was an episode of the Command Zone where Kyle Hill was featured,
mhm,
and he was talking about how Silvala made him swing from casual to competitive and what that pipeline for him looked like.
yeah,
And I was sitting there kind of looking at like listening to the podcast and I was like, how on earth is this elf, competitive? And at the time I had very little experience in cEDH. Almost actually at the time I had none. I remember hearing about Flash and Protean Hulk
yeah,
being a problem, and so like I was peripherally, I was
mhm,
aware of some of the problems in cEDH, but I didn't actually play it. I was still playing a mono green like Galta deck
yeah,
for fun, um, so listening to Kyle and then the guys at the Command Zone talk about how you can take this elf to be super explosive and borderline competitive. And it kind of got my, my gears turning. And then there was a playing with power video where they put out an up and running deck tech, something you can build for. I don't remember if they had a budget restriction on it,
I
but
think that one they didn't.
yeah. But you can get very competitive with and a lot of the cards in the deck, like in my list. So this is my pride and joy. This was my gateway to cEDH.
Yeah.
The first version of this deck, I actually still have it saved on my Mox field somewhere. The first version of this deck was about 200, so just shy of $300 now. And most of that is taken up in my 2 fetch lands and my Nykthos.
Yeah.
So, or 3 fetches and my Nykthos. That by itself
That's
is
about the budget right
100.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was at the time. Misty Rainforest alone was $80.
$80.
You know. And then Nykthos is at the time was like 20 or 25, and it's actually climbed up a little bit. But so this was like the first version of this deck was pretty budget. But I got to use super stupid cards like Steel Leaf Champion is a 3-mana 5/4 that was probably a kind of a house in standard.
Yeah.
I didn't play standard, but I imagine for 3 mana a 5/4 is pretty good. I also ran things like I just utilized what I had at the time. I didn't know. Obviously, cEDH is very proxy friendly. At the time, I didn't know that. I didn't even really know what proxies were. I didn't realize that people would let you just slap a sticky note on a card and call it Guy's Cradle and, be willing to jam games. So this was like built from bulk crap out of my collection. So I was running like Crumbling Colossus, which is a 5-mana 7/4. And if it attacks, you have to sacrifice it. I was running Titanoth Rex as a 9-mana 11/11, which isn't as good as it's like it's cool, but it's not great. And obviously I was running Galta, I was running Teamer Sabertooth as a combo piece, Wayward Swordtooth as a 3-mana 5/5. Like I was running some of the pieces that are absolutely still staples in the competitive version of the deck, but I was not up to par with it. And then the more I played it, the more I realized the list was not up to par. Even though that $300 list could probably still squeak in a game or two if you brought it to a real cEDH pod, because Selvala is just naturally explosive like that. Now my list is a lot closer to the deck list the cEDH deck list database version. I only run currently 2 proxies, one of which is Gaia's Cradle, because that's a very expensive card. And another expensive card, believe it or not. So like I own a Mana Crypt. I don't own a Phyrexian Dreadnought. So and it's I want to, but
it's really hard to get your money's worth on a Dreadnought.
Right.
This is the only place you're gonna play it.
Exactly. And I mean, realistically, I've been working on blinging out this deck because it is my baby. It is my favorite competitive deck, hands down, to play. Like I have a promo version of Galta that I didn't know existed until like 6 months ago. So I got that. But of course, because I'm like aiming to bling this out, Phyrexian Dreadnought has a Judge promo. That's a $250 card. That's kind of a hard pill to swallow at the moment. So
I always try to, like, when I'm blinging it out, focus on the permanents that will stay in play. And so like Phyrexian Dreadnought, definitely not going to. Immediately dies every time. Or like fetch lands, when you blink, it's like they look nice in the graveyard. Or it's the sorceries. But
yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've like my Windswept Heath. I did an advent calendar of Zendikar Rising collector boosters and Theros Beyond Death collector boosters, because at the time it was like right after Black Friday, the boxes were dirt cheap. So I grabbed a box of each and set it up as my advent calendar. And and I ended up pulling a foil expedition windswept heath.
That's awesome.
So like I was like, all right, well, cool, that's going in. You know, Wooded Foothills is also an expedition, but it's not the foil one. So like my list is pretty close to the database. There's a handful of cards I'm not running, partially because and if this is gonna be like a sub clause, if you're playing cEDH, don't make cuts for pet cards for the most part.
Yeah.
I still run one pet card currently, one real pet card in the deck, and that is Gigantosaurus. I refuse to take it out. It's a 5-mana 10/10.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says.
I will say I was goldfishing the deck when you sent me the list, and I did like goldfish a win with Gigantosaurus. I was like, okay,
Yeah, it's totally possible. And I mean, every once in a while, I send them my list, you know, I'm like, because like right now, I have a woodland bellower that I need to make room for, and everyone's like, we'll cut Gigantosaurus, and I'm like, okay, I should have said, suggest a card that is not Gigantosaurus, because I will absolutely keep that card in the deck. It's I don't know, there's just something about, and I guess it harkens back to why I play Selvala. I know I've kind of derailed a couple times, but so I play Selvala because I get to play mono green Stompy at its like fastest rate possible. Like there is nothing more fun than being able to like, and I've done this a couple times, play a forest, cast an Allosaurus Shepherd. Now your stuff's uncounterable. Cast a Jeweled Lotus, cast Selvala, pass turn, and people are like, okay, that's gonna be a problem. And then you untap and you play like Lupin Prototype, and you know, which is a garbage 2-mana 5/5 that does absolutely nothing. But in Selvala, it draws you a card. She now taps for 5 mana, you know, and you just kind of create this snowball where sometimes you're like, okay, Lupin Prototype into you know, Phyrexian Soul Gorger, 2-mana floating, cast a Wirewood Symbiote, bounce the Allosaurus Shepherd, untap Selvala, retap her. Now I have 8 mana, you know, like it's really fun to be able to just start chaining together these cards that, especially I'm sure back in the day, Lupin Prototype was probably good because of the madness mechanic. Is all I can think of. Like if you were in standard playing madness and you drafted Lupin Prototype, you could be like, well, I plan on being hellbent most of the time. I got a 2-mana 5/5.
Yeah.
Let's go. You know? But it's a really fun deck. So you get to play like Sheltering Ancient is another just garbage 2-mana 5/5, but it's a 2-mana 5/5. And if there's one thing that Selvala loves, it's turning your garbage cards into card draw and mana, and then just being able to just go nuts from there. So yeah, I get to play mono green Stompy. My favorite thing to do in all of Magic is draw cards. So I get to play things like my favorite card when I first got into Magic. So I've only been playing for about 6 years. Throne of Eldraine and Kaladesh were like brand new, or not Throne of Eldraine. Shadows over Innistrad, Eldritch Moon, and Kaladesh Aether Revolt. Those were brand new standard when I first started. So I got in right as Amonkhet, Hour of Devastation came out. I had just started playing, so I wasn't like crazy into Magic yet. But then Ixalan came out and it introduced dinosaurs, and I was like, well, I'm a Jurassic Park fan, so let's go. But my favorite card to play around, and I would slam it in every deck I possibly could, was Rishkar's Expertise. Stupid. I don't know why that card got printed, but it is so much fun to be able to cast something like Gigantosaurus or Galta for, you know, off of Selvala, and then maybe have an untapper, retap Selvala for 5, 6, or at that point 10 mana, cast a Rishkar's Expertise, draw 10 cards, cast a 5-drop for free, which sometimes is like Return of the Wild Speaker or Soul's Majesty, and then you draw another 10 cards. Like if I draw 20 cards in a turn and I still like don't have the answer and I end up losing because someone's like, he needs to go, I'm happy. I'm still like, yeah, I didn't get the win, but in my mind,
Yeah.
I drew 20 cards in one turn. I still won. Like, so yeah, it's a list. It's a deck that, and I even recently built a $50 budget version, kind of as like a joke. Um, but the $50 version still goes pretty hard, and I mean, I don't want to recommend taking it to a casual table because I think it would still potentially be too strong for like a hey, let's hang out and have fun casual game.
Mhm.
Because it still has the ability to combo off on turns 4 through 6, even by pulling all the tutors and most of the fast mana and fetch lands out of it.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just a fun deck, and I've been playing. I've been tuning it for the last almost 2 years. Almost every set we get something better and better with it.
Yeah.
Recently, I was super stoked when Rosewater made his Baldur's Gate spoiler blog,
Mhm.
and there was a 10/10 flying trample that can be cast for a single green was like his preview, his hint, and I was so excited, so excited. And then like 2 days ago, I got spoiled, and it's like a 15 mana dragon that costs less
Yeah.
for like
The
the
Power of
total
Dragons, I
power of
think.
dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, this sucks. No,
Yeah.
this is not what I want. I was so hyped to be like, let's go. I'm gonna have a 1 mana 10/10 for Selvala. This is gonna be sweet. No, you're
That's how it
not.
goes.
Yeah.
So this was your gateway into CDH, basically,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
Do you think it is a good gateway to CDH for someone looking to get into it?
I think so. I think the only problems with a monocolored deck like Selvala is you run into the biggest thing this deck folds to is interaction.
Mhm.
So being especially mono green, your interaction, what you can do on the stack to try and stop people from winning or stop them from stopping your win it's a very small package. You have like Autumn's Veil of Summer, and that's kind of it. And then
Endurance sometimes can stop
yeah,
a
you
win.
have
Yeah.
endurance, and I've almost, I can't say I've been able to pull it off yet. I have almost gotten the Underworld Breach player with endurance once, and he had a Rhystic study, and my dumbass decided to pay for the Rhystic study tax instead of hold up my last green mana for a Veil of Summer, so he couldn't counter the endurance.
Yeah.
But I didn't want him to draw into any other answers, and he countered the endurance, and I was just like, son of a. So your interaction suite's pretty limited. Your onboard interaction is okay. It's not as good as it could be. I would say that pretty much any deck that runs black as a primary or a support color is going to be slightly better to learn on because your suite of tutors
Mhm.
is just so much greater. And your tutors can be, if in this deck, my tutors are specifically backup combo pieces.
Yeah.
That's what they go grab. They always go grab either a combo piece or a combo enabler or something I can tap Selvala for greater than 6 mana.
Mhm.
Whereas I know it's like the meme color at this point, but in like a Dimir colored or a 3-color deck with blue and black, you really can use Vampiric and Demonic Tutor to go grab anything, whether it's a combo piece or a piece of interaction if you know someone's going to try and go off on their turn.
Mhm.
In green, you don't quite have that. I think this deck, if you want to get into cEDH, you can absolutely build a high power combo deck around Selvala that's still pretty budget, especially since Staff of Domination is super cheap after its
Mhm.
reprint. And you can probably get to a point where if you feel like you can pilot it well, then you can give it that last little boost up into cEDH and probably hang pretty easily, knowing when to time your interaction or time your endurance. There's a lot of key things, a lot of little things you can do to just kind of pivot into A lot of it comes from experience. So I've been playing this deck for 2 years. Not quite exclusively. I've got 2 other decks that I really enjoy, and then 2 other decks. So I have a total of 5 competitive decks that I kind of enjoy, and I'm on the edge of taking them down. But primarily playing Selvala, I've gotten to a point where I can eke out a couple of really interesting, almost instant speed wins, primarily using something like Emergent Zone, which is the land you can sack and then play things at instant speed. My favorite thing ever was getting Psych Rifted on an end step, and then as soon as someone went to go replay their first mana rock, I cracked that and flashed in my collector oof, and they were like, well, I moved to end step and discarded all their mana rocks, and I was just like, got him, coach.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to get into cEDH, I would highly recommend. I mean, you could goldfish the database list. You can goldfish really any list. I mean, I've got mine on my. I think I've got my Linktree in my Twitter that has access to my Mox field. But anyway, it is a very fun list. They're all pretty similar. They aim to win about the same way. There's multiple backup combo lines for whether if you lose a combo piece or a way to win. Like the biggest way you win is infinite mana, draw most of your deck, cast Finale of Devastation for X is 1,000,000 and kill the table. But there are other ways to win. I haven't had to resort to those yet. I almost was able to pull off a Kogla Beast Within loop where you flicker Kogla to fight people's creatures, and then you flicker Eternal Witness to get Beast Within to start blowing up everybody. You cast Beast Within, destroy something, they make a 3/3. You find a way to flicker Eternal Witness. You get Beast Within back, you kill another thing, and you do that loop until everyone's lands, rocks, creatures, everything's a 3/3, and then you flicker Kogla in order to kill everybody's board. And you make them, at that point, most people will probably scoop unless they have a suite of fast mana in their hand. But if someone has no lands or 1 land in their hand and nothing to do, it's pretty much game over.
Yeah.
So there are backup wins for when your main win con gets shut down. I've won without Selvala twice now, with Ashaya and Priest of Titania tapping for enough mana to be able to still generate infinite mana. But I do think monocolor decks in general for cEDH, they do struggle from the lack of interaction. So they have a hard time. They just have a hard time interacting on the stack or being able to keep people from their wins. So the whole point of Selvala is to land Selvala and combo off as fast as humanly possible. Sometimes I've only pulled off a turn. I've never pulled off a turn 2 win. I have had the pieces to do so, but I was going last in turn order, and the players in front of me were able to get there faster. But I have won on turn 3 with this list a handful of times. It's really cool in the way that every once in a while things just line up like that. This is a pretty consistent. My version of the deck is a pretty consistent. Like threatens turn 3, almost always attempts turn 4, and if Selvala gets removed one too many times, then it starts getting harder and harder to solidify a win on 5 or 6. But
yeah,
it's pretty consistent. 4 or 5 turns, 4 or 5. I'm usually threatening to present a massive amount of either card advantage or mana on turns 3 to 4, but I'm usually there's always the chance that I don't have a certain piece, or I'm looking for a tutor, or I need a draw spell. Like, you can't always have the perfect 7. So
yeah.
There's definitely times where I have not been able to hit or find the right piece in my draws or my my cantrips off of my creatures or anything like that. And those games you just gotta chalk it up to, well, there's always next time. Yeah, so you said you goldfished the deck.
Yeah, I did.
Overall, any thoughts? Anything you think that I could or should do better?
So I definitely don't. I absolutely don't have enough experience to be telling anybody how to
Sure.
build it. But I felt it was like the main thing I got out of it, because I kind of kept goldfishing it for a while, was that it felt really consistent.
Yeah,
Where
that's what I like to
you
hear.
weren't always like exploding on it. Like sometimes you would just like turn one dork and Jeweled Lotus Selvala, which
Yep.
feels really good.
Hell
But
yeah.
almost always it's like turn one some kind of mana, turn two Selvala, turn three you're pretty much ready to go.
Yep.
Which felt really good. I could tell it was a deck that was like, you know, I'm goldfishing wins every time. I know I'm gonna be able to be interacted with in an actual game, so like
Yep.
you kind of just gotta go for it. It seems, or
Yeah.
try to read the table.
Yep.
But yeah, it was definitely like it feels really like what it does really well. It feels really smooth because you're gonna draw a lot. You're gonna more than likely you're gonna have more mana than you need. So it felt like sometimes you
Yeah.
just lack the card you need.
Yep. Yep.
Um, which is that happens to every deck. But being able to
Yep.
just be like, yep, I always have the mana. That
Yep.
is gonna feel good, and being able to pretty consistently draw cards, that's pretty
Yeah.
nice. I was thinking like, you know, it it did seem like a good place to start for cEDH, which you had mentioned. I have a friend who's like big green player who I've been trying to kind of get into it, and it's just like
Yeah.
it does the things that casual players kind of want to do, but it does it in cEDH, where it's like
Yep.
you're gonna draw a lot of cards, you're gonna play really big creatures, you're gonna get to kill everybody with combat. And
Yep.
so I think it is, like you said, like you're not in Dimir, which is probably the worst thing your commander can have going for them, is not being in
Yep.
Dimir.
Yep.
Or in white, I maintain that white is one of the best colors, but
No, I think white is doing just fine,
oh
especially
yeah,
in cEDH where pretty much anything goes.
yeah,
In casual, I think it's doing much better than it was last year. So
yeah. I think my main thing is as a monocolor, I feel like white just does its thing so well. It's just like it might not win, but it will stop everybody else from winning or slow everybody
yeah.
down really consistently. Like I think green and white both have that kind of built-in consistency where they
Yeah.
maybe, like you said, they're not, both of them kind of suck on the stack to be honest, but
Yep.
they're able to do the thing. But yeah, I think it could be, and also the lines are pretty straightforward compared to like a Yeva or a Yisan, where Yisan especially is like you really need to know the list to be able to pilot that.
Yep.
This is just like if you know your combo pieces, a lot of times you don't care about where you're getting the mana from. You just get
Yep.
enough of it. Get a big creature, slam it, do it.
Yep.
Hope it doesn't get countered.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I want to play it for sure. I want to
Yeah.
get some actual games in.
Sweet. No, that makes me really happy to hear. One, that it's consistent and feels fun to play, because I mean, so my other decks, so I play Gitrog, which is such a hard deck to like pilot.
Yeah.
For the most, like, it's easy to be like, okay, get to Gitrog mana, tutor for a discard outlet / Dakmor salvage. But God, it is
Everything
so
else.
hard to like, yeah, like for the most part, you get to this point, especially over webcam, spell table games and stuff like that, where you're just like, all right, I discard Dakmor salvage. Please tell me if you have interaction now, and if you don't, and you have no interaction for any portion of the rest of this, don't make me go through the line, please, because I mean, I played a quick 1v1 cEDH. I say quick, cEDH game with my girlfriend who plays Taddy over turns.
Okay.
And I was like, I really need to like just get good piloting Gitrog. I need to get good piloting Gitrog. And so we played like 3 games. And I was finally like, I got to a point where she wasn't able to interact with me, and I was like, sweet, discard Dakmor salvage. And I was like, this is gonna suck, but I want to go through this loop until I actually get to the point, so that way when someone asks me, okay, well, how do you win from there, I can actually tell them how I win from there instead of just being like, oh well, I'm pretty sure I just do XYZ.
Yeah.
It took me 45 minutes. 45 minutes just to get down to the point where I could start looping Lotus Petal and Dark Ritual for mana. Like just discarding Dakmor, dredging, hit a shuffler. Okay, discard Dakmor, leave the shuffler on the stack, start drawing, discard this crap that I don't need anymore so I can draw more. And then, like, okay, we'll start resolving everything, hit that shuffle trigger, shuffle. It's just.
Yeah. There are definitely some decks that like every deck has it like a mastery, required to really do well with it. But there are some that's like I don't think Selvala needs a mechanical mastery necessarily as much of like literally I need to do this, like this check. Like it's like every deck, like your awareness, your understanding of your lines and stuff like that. That's all its own sort of mastery. But you have decks like Gitrog is the biggest example, or like Anala even, where you have like really specific lines where you got to do this into this into this into this. That can be really daunting, and having just like slam Selvala turn 2, any creature, doesn't matter which one. I have like 8 different 2 to 3 card combos that I can do to just storm in a very straightforward way. Bounce into my hand, replay it. Bounce 2 to my hand, replay them. And that's pretty nice.
Yeah. Anala Spellseeker is another one that like I looked at the primer and it's like there's it's like a 27 step process.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why?
But it can I've seen like they can do it on turn 1 and just boom, and it's just so hard to do because you just have like Imminence is obviously a design mistake, and you can just do it. But I know like having to learn the deck, you'll be like play it, okay, do I grab this? And then once you tutor for the wrong thing and you're just like, oh, I needed to do this. Is it okay if I do that? And then it's its own sort of like thing to untangle and have to learn.
It is a really cool deck. Like I've only watched gameplay videos of the Anala decks, but man, it can
feel like it can kind of feel just like the most powerful thing you can do, but also it's just like it is such a process.
So Gitrog is a deck that's kind of on the chopping block for me, just because it's a hard deck to pilot. It's a hard deck to pilot well, and it's an even harder deck to play over like Spell Table. Which is where I play 99% of my Magic nowadays. Winota, oddly enough, for being a creature deck that I absolutely love, I have been very unimpressed. Now, granted, my list, I realized a little late that my list is a little too light on creatures. I tried to be a little more stacksy and a little more interactive, and it's not a good place for Winota to be. So, but that list, man, if you want to get into cEDH and you still want to play with creatures and win through combat, I think don't do what I did and don't try and brew your own like this is my stacks version of Winota. Play the database version and go nuts, because
it's
database
really
version is very good. Obviously like you can, and that's the thing, right, with cEDH, like the database is kind of like just a jumping off point. And you'll hear cEDH brewers talk about it all the time, where they're like, feel free to adjust to your meta. Like, I'm not running Sylvan Safekeeper in my list. I probably should, but I personally don't like. I'm already only running 29 lands. The last thing I want to do when someone goes to get rid of Selvala is go down lands when they can just in response still get rid of Selvala, and then I have a harder time getting into the game. So I still run things like Blossoming Defense, and what's the other one I run? Vines of Vastwood. So I still run those in my list because I would rather, if I'm going to lose Selvala because they have a counter or because they have another piece of removal to go on top of my vines, then I'm going to lose her. But I'd rather not go down the lands because for the most part, like I used to run Exploration in my very early iteration of the deck because I was still on 32 lands or some crap. So turn 1 Exploration, play a second land, play a mana dork, you've got a very good start.
Yeah.
But going down to 29 lands, just the threshold is so much smaller that exploration just doesn't quite. And even at 32 lands, I would say exploration was very questionable.
Yeah.
But yeah, Winota's a really good deck
It's
for
really like
beginners.
strong, and it's also like I would say generally most people would say that stacks isn't a great place to start because it can be it's the best way to king make somebody if you don't know what you're doing with stacks, and also just like
Right.
the way it wins can be not very straightforward for a lot of stacks lists.
Right.
But like I think Winota does, but like Winota just throws up so much stacks that it doesn't affect
Yep.
you and it hits everybody that you can
Yep.
just sort of do it and jam it. And the way you win is either just beat everybody to death or like really straightforward combos that are even like casual, you know, like Kiki Jiki. Most of those Kiki
Yep.
Jiki lines, those are like in red decks that are just, you
Yep.
know, if you're coming from casual, going to Winota, I think can be a really easy jumping off point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Winota is a good starting point because most of your stacks doesn't affect you. The very little bit that does, I mean, I believe the database version of Winota is down to like 3 or 4 instants and sorceries. Like there is not a lot there,
Yeah.
and it makes it so like your Thalia effects or your Vryn Wingmares or anything like that, like those don't affect you because you're usually not casting spells. You're not a very reactive deck. You're a proactive deck. So yeah, it's on seven instants and sorceries, and 2 of the sorceries are MDFCs. So they're probably played as lands more often than not. But yeah, Winota's super cool. I liked it. Like I said, my version was a little. I did the same thing. It was shortly after I got into cEDH. I built Selvala. I built Croxa, which is one of my favorite decks.
That's all. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. It's fallen to the wayside now. I stopped being a turbo ad nauseum list. I'm trying something different. I don't know if I like it. I'm gonna play it a couple more times before I decide. I built Kess because I think Kess is really cool for a Grixis commander, but kind of the same thing. Like you just run like Consult Thoracle combos for the most part, and I don't know. It just the Turbo Nas version with Consult Thoracle is the better version. I tried to do something a little more value centric around Kess, but it just doesn't feel very good. So, and then Winota and Gitrog. And Winota, the only reason I'm thinking about breaking it down is because Kit Kanto is a thing right now in cEDH. And Rebel's version of Kit Kanto is freaking awesome. It is so much
I was hearing
fun.
people talk about it, but I still haven't taken a look at it yet.
Yeah, it's really cool. I played it. So I'm part of a cEDH, like introduction to cEDH stream that a buddy of mine puts on. So twice a week, he hosts a cEDH stream, and we try and invite as many new players into the format as possible. So when people don't understand why we're doing what we're doing, we'll like stop what we're doing and explain everything. And so we try and be as welcoming as possible because we really do want more people in cEDH. Like I personally, I prefer cEDH now to casual because there's no salt, there's no like, or very little salt. You know, sometimes you just get screwed and you're out of a game and it feels bad. But so yeah, we played. I forget. I think I played Selvala, and I won with Selvala with just Selvala, no other creatures. I had Staff of Domination and Invigorate, which gives Selvala +4/+4, which is just enough mana to go infinite. But so then I pulled open Rebel's Moxfield list for Kit Kanto, and that list is sweet. It is so cool. Like you're playing. I played, what is it, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, that saga from Kamigawa. You know, I was able to land that on like turn 1. I landed something else on turn 2. No, I landed Kit on turn 2. I kept like a really spicy hand, and then I drew a Jetmir off the top. So then I landed Jetmir, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I had Loyal Apprentice, so I'm creating all these tokens.
Yeah.
I'm having an Esper Sentinel swing at the Tymna player that's a friggin' 3/3 with trample. Like the deck was just so cool, and I had so much fun playing it, and it still runs Winota in the 99 to be able to vomit all
Yeah.
of your
She's
stacks
crazy.
pieces on board. Yeah. And
We
so I'm taking Winota down. I'm gonna keep a like higher power casual version of it, but
mhm.
I'm gonna build Kit Kanto
Yeah.
as my
And
stack
I gotta
instead.
check that out. I talked about this the episode that unfortunately won't be aired, but we'll redoing it. We might touch on this and how like Naya has just like like that was the color the 3 color combination that just like exploded from New Capenna. It got so much because like Rocco is
Yes.
absolutely insane. Like it can be you can play Rocco like Secret Commander Godo or Secret Commander
Yep.
Winota Rocco or just Dockside
Yep.
dot deck. Like there's so much like
Yep.
Naya got so much good stuff out of there, and it's
Yeah.
really sick to see because like I don't really care what other people play, but there is like we've mentioned there's a lot of Demir and getting to see
Yep.
like the 3 non-Demir colors who are generally the weakest just like
Yep.
get these crazy new commanders and like really interesting new decks is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and what's cool too is like, so Naya, to my knowledge, at least for the last 2 years, has pretty much been like absolutely the worst color
Yeah.
combination in cEDH.
And then they got like
Um,
Minsk that
yeah,
was like the
they had
first where they
Minsk.
kind of started to come back.
Yep. And like Minsk Hulk is a thing, you know,
Hmm.
like it's a thing. It works. But now that instead of just having Minsk or having like Tana plus Bruce Tarl or some crap,
Yeah.
you know, like you've got or Tana Arden, like Cicada's hipster stacks list is
Hmm.
pretty cool. Being able to slam a colossal hammer on
Yeah.
on Tana's pretty sweet. But yeah, it's Naya, yeah, has just absolutely gone through the roof as far
Hmm.
as its selection of commanders you can play. It still runs more or less the same combos because
Yeah.
they are reliable and fairly resilient
Hmm.
combos. But now you just have like you have options. And I
Yeah.
think that's what Naya really needed most, more
Hmm.
than any other powerful cards in the 99 was just more good commander options.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Demir or Grixis has you can run. I've kind of joked about it. Like you could literally run any blue black commander and
You got a
run the
chance.
cEDH staple list. You have a
Yeah.
chance because you just tutor for consult, tutor for Thoracle, and
Mm.
bam. For the most part, you're good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's something to be said about piloting kind of like the lesser known or the lesser appreciated combos
Hmm.
or colors. I think that's again touching back to Selvala. That's one thing that drew me to the deck was, I mean, everyone kind of memes at the time that I was getting into cEDH on monocolored decks and how weak they were. Doc's side was good, but Jessica's will had like just gotten printed, so people were
Hmm.
like, okay, red's kind of doing better, and you know now mono white is even not quite there, but it's getting close. I mean, Teshar is a deck,
Hmm.
but Oswald Fiddlebender, you know, it came out and people were like, okay, like there are
Yeah.
things you can do, you know, Heliod's been a deck, so yeah, it's really cool. I think if anyone wants to get into cEDH, I think monocolor is a decent place to start because your mana base isn't going to cost you anything and everything if you
Hmm.
are the kind of person who wants to play with real cards.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of person that owns a color printer or owns a stack of sticky notes about yay tall,
Hmm. Or has a
then just
Moxfield account.
or has yeah, honestly, so that's how I played Kit Kanto
Yeah.
on stream, was just using the Moxfield playtester. It works phenomenally.
Hmm.
Just if you want to try cEDH, you can. Most of the lists, in fact, I think it's a requirement. All of the lists on the database have a primer, It's pretty easy to go there and read what the deck does. It's gonna take a it'll probably take a while to learn
Mhm.
how to pilot the deck and how it actually gets to the point where it does its thing. But I mean, like we talked about Teshar or touched on Teshar. That deck's really cool. It's a little complicated
Mhm.
in what you need and how everything layers, but that deck's super cool. And I think it's a very underrated and probably a pretty budget deck because
Yeah.
most of the pieces in Teshar don't see a lot of play
Yeah.
anywhere else in the database.
I kind of think one thing I'd somehow end up bringing this up every episode, but like these like Teshar is a big one that's a monocolored deck, and then like Urza is another really strong monocolored deck.
Yep.
They're both very artifact centric in a very dockside heavy world where
Yeah.
those commanders, I'm telling you, any commander that makes treasures, any commander that uses enchantments, any commander that uses artifacts will get so buffed when dockside is gone because you're not going to get punished anymore. Like Prosper is going to be so freaking good because you will never have to
Oh,
sack your treasures ever to a dockside in response ever again.
yep.
All those treasure decks are going to get so good.
Yeah.
Oh,
God, Prosper. That honestly, if there's a deck to just, I think the downside to Prosper is in when you're just in Rakdos, your
mm,
win con is most of your win cons aren't like 2-card combos unless you go
yeah.
World Gorger, which is always super
Or you can do
risky.
like dual caster mage
You
stuff.
can do dual
Yeah.
caster. But man, I think if you're new to cEDH, if you just want to build it, Prosper is a friggin' powerhouse.
Yeah.
Playing against Prosper in casual is a freaking
It's one
nightmare
I
because
see. You'll see comments of people just like already people even in casual players just like, well, this is just another thing that's gonna make Prosper really good because there's so much impulse draw.
yep,
Uh, from like red keeps getting impulse draw, black keeps getting like exile something from your opponent's something,
yep,
cast it any colors, blah blah blah, and it just keeps getting new. Like Prosper's gotten new cards like every single set since it's been released.
yeah,
It's getting
yeah.
better. And Jessica's Will is already one of like the best red cards you can play, and it is the best in Prosper.
I think what pushes Prosper over the edge for me, it's the same thing or it's a similar thing to why I think Kodama of the East Tree is an
Hmm.
absolute friggin' mistake.
Yeah,
Uh Prosper lets you hit your land drops and gives you treasure at the
for
same
hitting
time
land. Yeah, it's crazy.
for hitting your that is just so much. I mean,
Doesn't feel
I've
like you
and
should. It feels like Prosper should have the text like you may cast them.
non-land.
Yeah,
You may cast. You may
make has, but
cast.
instead you just play a land, get a treasure.
Yep.
Yep. Or, like you just as
Yep.
well, and you're like, if I hit a land, it's even better. Like that's the only
Yep.
time you want to hit them with. Like I haven't played my land. Jessica's Will. I'm already getting 5 mana. Here's 2 more mana just from hitting
Yep.
a land drop off of Jessica's Will. Like oh, it's so
Yeah.
dirty.
And
So good.
and in a world where, Peer into the Abyss is a
Hmm.
7 mana, freaking card, hit your land drop, you got your 5 red floating from Jessica and cast Peer. Like, yeah, Prosper is very, very powerful. I
Hmm.
think not so much for cEDH in Kodama's realm of things, but talking about design mistakes,
Yeah.
I still think that Kodama should have said non-token, non-land.
Yeah. It definitely. We talked. I think I talked about this. I don't. One of the other episodes I mentioned like Kodama's a card. If you get a precon and you just stick Kodama in it, you probably have an infinite. Just
Yeah.
just with you got some bounce lands in there, something like that, and then it's just like, nope, you can go infinite.
Yeah.
Like the I mean the mana
Yeah.
cost is the big prohibitive thing with it,
You're
obviously,
in
but
green though.
yeah,
6 mana
especially in
ain't
casual, mostly in CDH where it's like
right.
like where we have like Kodama Sakashima is a really powerful thing you can do, but an extremely expensive thing
Yeah,
you can do.
in casual.
But obviously,
Yeah.
Kodama just gets you so much value. Where yeah, like you're saying, like you make a treasure token. I'm getting a mana and I'm gonna put a land out,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's
Yeah.
too much.
Uh
It's crazy.
two of my friends were talking about a Prava or not Prava, sorry, Tormod.
Yeah.
And one of them was talking about how she like her favorite thing to do is gravewalker or gravecrawler loops.
Yeah.
And they brought up how with Tormod having partner, like they were trying to figure out how to break Kodama and Tormod. And
Tormod.
I was literally like, any cast creature draw card effect will draw you the entire deck, put out all of your lands, all of your 1-drops. And I'm like, and then like anything at
You do
that
anything you
point,
want.
like
Yeah.
you have 28 new lands onto the battlefield, like,
Hmm.
and God knows if you have any
You
aristocrats
can just do
piece
like
or
a
anything.
natural finale of devastation at that point, and then
Yeah,
just win.
yeah, realistically,
Yeah.
because you've drawn your deck, and it,
You
you know,
probably don't even
if
have
you're
to build with, because normally like Golgari right now is doing Witchbloom Apprentice,
yep,
Chain of
Chain
Smog
of
stuff, which
Smog,
is like, if you have your whole deck in your hand, frick, don't even worry about that.
yeah,
Don't start discarding stuff. Just pump all the mana into a finale or whatever.
yep,
You
yeah,
might just
play
run
your
Craterhoof, honestly, to just play
yeah,
all the
no,
creatures.
for real though, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it. I mean, and they were talking about it in more of a casual aspect,
Yeah.
but I'm like, yeah, if you're a grave crawler loop kind of person, Guardian Project or any of the like Beast Whisperer kind of effects,
Yeah.
you draw your deck if you're doing Gravecrawler loop in Kodama with Tormod, you know. And oh yeah, and now you have I guess they do enter tapped the zombies from Tormod, so
Mm.
you do kind of, I guess that's the only downside, but God, is that
Yeah.
really a downside at that
It's not much
point?
of
Like,
something. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and going back to what you could do if your deck is in your hands and you have all 40, 35 lands on the battlefield, you just cast an aristocrats piece and sacrifice them and
Mm.
kill the table.
Yeah.
Like,
There's a lot you can do at
GG.
that point. You're in a really good spot. Wait,
Yeah.
I think there's a misconception, not in the cEDH community, but like people outside of it looking in, that there's not a lot of brewing, like it's
Oh,
console, but it's absolutely not. Like, I think part of it comes in when, like, we kind of touched on this, when a new person comes in, they want to brew, and if they talk
yeah.
to a cEDH person, they're probably going to say, please don't, because you're going to
Right.
have a real, like, it's going to be really hard to effectively do it, and you're going to really struggle when you first come in. But it
Yep.
is like, once you get into it, that's what's pretty much what all of us are doing. We're brewing all kinds of different things, like you said, getting to work with different colors that people aren't playing, because just like casual commander players, they want to play something different nobody's played before. They want, oh, this deck does this. cEDH players, we're doing the same thing, but we're trying to,
Right.
do it at a super high power level. So there's a lot of brewing in cEDH if you get into it. Just, get into it, try to
Yeah.
learn first. There's also a lot to learn, which is kind of, the big hump to get over. Once you do that,
Yeah.
then brew all kinds of nonsense. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
very powerful things. Like, every color combination has a way to win on the spot.
Yeah.
So there's tons of ways to brew, and you might come up with something nobody else has.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of brewing before we part, and speaking of Kodama, because cheating things into play is very powerful.
Mm.
I've actually been brewing. It's a little on the fringe side, so I don't think it'll ever quite hit cEDH, but it's Gillanra, Collar of Wirewood, and Kodama as partners.
Is that the
And so
black
Gillanra's
elf
just like,
or
no, she's
green?
the green elf that just
Yeah.
taps and adds a mana. But
Mhm.
then if you use that to cast a spell with mana
6 or
value
more.
6 or greater, you
Yeah.
draw a card. That deck, so I've goldfished it a handful of times. I need to mess around with it a little bit more, especially now that there's that stupid 15 mana dragon coming out.
Mhm.
But there's so that deck's a lot of fun because you basically land Gillanra and as many mana dorks, fast mana as you can. You land Kodama, you start drawing cards, and then eventually you get to this point where you like cast Orin Frostfang and cheat in like Temur Sabertooth or Beast Whisperer, or then you can, and it just goes from there. You can cast Orin Reef Hydra and
Mhm.
cheat in a Soul of the Harvest or a Kogla, or so like the point of the deck is to eventually just like start drawing incrementally more cards for casting bigger things, but then cheat in equally big or close to as big of things with Kodama,
Yeah.
and do the same thing with with like Quirion Ranger and Ashaya loops and
Hmm.
infinite mana finale kind of shit. But it's it's like I said, it's probably just like a fringe high power casual list.
Yeah.
Because I didn't run like a huge suite of tutors. There's a couple, but it was a lot of fun, and I might try and bring it to my normal cEDH pod and just see if anything can be made of it.
Hmm.
Uh, it probably won't, but who knows? You know,
Yeah.
only one way
Gotta
to find out.
experiment.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the like you said. For the most part, if you're looking to get into cEDH, I would definitely recommend perusing the database, seeing if you can find gameplay of a deck that you think looks interesting, see if it has play patterns that like suit your style. Like
Hmm.
I said, Selvala for me was I get to play big creatures, draw a bunch of cards, and wow, maybe go infinite. Like, all right, let's see what happens. And once you kind of have an idea of the cadence of cEDH and how most games will end up going, then you can start kind of get an idea of like, okay, well, here are the staples in my colors, or here is this really unique effect that doesn't see a lot of play, but is a 1 card or 2 card win condition. How can I achieve the best way to build around that?
Hmm.
I mean, you see Bolas' Citadel with Sensei's Divining Top and Aetherflux Reservoir. I'm sure people play it in casual. I
Yeah.
think that's a little pushed, but that's a little. I
Yeah.
mean, that's pretty high power in my opinion.
Hmm.
But then again, it is 11 mana to get it off the
Yeah.
ground.
It's one of those things that's like the payoff is cEDH viable technically,
Yeah,
but it is
yeah,
such a big investment to begin
yeah,
with, and it's like, you might not be able to play it here, but there might also you might get a commander who suddenly, your artifacts cost way less, or you're able to we get a commander, for some reason a Sultai commander who can tinker on ETB, and then all of a sudden Boa Citadel is and starting to show up in a lot more games. So
yeah.
things change all the time. There's lots of interactions we still haven't figured out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, people are already trying to figure out how they can break the new background mechanic coming out,
Yeah.
and it'll be really interesting. I don't think we'll see anything super broken.
Yeah,
I
from what
think
I
you'll
could
see a lot of
see of it,
power though.
it's not nothing like stands out. I think as much as like some of the like the partners in Commander Legends 1, where we're
Right.
like, okay, yeah, Tevesh is gonna be good, Jessica's an outlet, so these are gonna
Yeah.
be really good. But then we also have like Displacer Kit, and that's the one I keep bringing up. That thing is
Yeah.
so ridiculous. It will be. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I was like, I don't know if it's gonna be format defining, but it will absolutely be deck defining for some number of decks. They're just gonna cheat that stupid cat in and just
Yep.
go off.
Yeah. I mean, because to some degree, if I'm remembering correctly, I've already seen people like in modern, people are trying to build Luris, Lotus Petal, Displacer Kitten, and kind of be able to go infinite off of that if you have another mana rock or something,
Mm.
like it is. Yeah, because whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile 1 target non-land permanent, then yeah, so you flicker a non-land permanent. So yeah, I mean, God, if you've got, yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be broken as hell. I know
Yeah,
people
you pretty much get just
have
like
broken it.
two positive rocks, and like
Two
there's
positive rocks.
so many different things you can do or like you can do like basalt monolith stuff where you're able to exile, it'll come in back untapped, and then you're able to
Oh,
net
yep,
mana if you're recasting or bouncing things. It works really
yep,
well with Kodama because you're just
yep,
gonna be getting
yep.
stuff in and doing things like that's. I've been trying to brew that that Nira commander, the is it one that's 6 mana? It just goes infinite with as soon as you cast the spell, you get to play every single spell from your deck once you get it in the cat out, which is one of the coolest interactions I've seen recently. But
Yeah, yeah,
it's so you get to put the thing back on top, so you can literally not have any creatures in your deck. You cast every single spell in your deck over and over, swap it with the bottom. If you hit your
yeah,
storm outlet, you just put it on bottom. You don't care. You just do the same thing. Get your infinite storm, brain freeze everybody. It's like it's such a cool, and I really want it to work, but I think it'll
yeah,
end up being like you just don't have the like the tutors as well. I think some green deck will end up throwing it into play and do
yeah.
something
Or
crazy with
yeah,
it.
some some teamer deck out there
Yeah.
is gonna be able to go off with it. Yeah. Oh God. Animar.
Mm,
Because Animar is gonna give you natural cost reduction,
yeah.
and you're in green for the right kinds of tutors. Like, so that seems like a pretty easy way to
Yeah.
go infinite
You
with
could do some kind of
those.
like birthing pot. Like I've was trying to recently build Riku, the
Two reflections.
yeah,
Yep.
and it was just like there's not like the payoffs are like okay, they're fine. And then it's like you get this thing, so then you get two of these out, then it just gets even like every time we cast flickering two things, you can already like you're in green, you can already get multiple like so yet again we found another way to make dockside good because you can just keep
Yeah.
flickering.
Right.
We just keep flickering your dockside. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah. I'm excited. I saw someone play a Ragadraga
Yeah,
in a deck recently, and that card is stupid.
it
Like that
looks
card is
like
cool.
it will make. I mean, we'll have to see, but it seems like it would make just regular aggro actually a deck that you just run a bunch of dorks and
Yeah.
Ragadraga in the zone, and you just like your Timnus can't attack you anymore, and you're
Yep.
trading like dorks with Nagilas now. All of a sudden, it's like any other of those creature heavy lists are just gonna get stomped by just
Yeah.
dorks.
Yeah. No, it's definitely gonna give like Rurikthar, I think, a run for its money.
Hmm.
Um, I do think like the only downside in theory to Ragadraga would be just in theory if you want to lean more into that last line of text, which obviously you don't have to, but just running like 7, 8, 9 mana things is obviously pretty hard to justify in
Yeah.
cEDH. But yeah, I don't know. The turning dorks into Timna killers is just the coolest
Yeah.
freaking thing.
It
Like,
would already be like pretty good, I think, but like the fact it untaps your dorks get to attack and then they get to
and
untap and
then,
then you can still you
yep,
can like decide like oh well they blocked here so I don't need a blocker for that so tap out for more mana, put out more dorks
yep,
or whatever. Yeah,
yep,
I'm excited for like new archetypes like that where it's like Gruul kind of sucks. Like Naya is in a really good spot. Gruul,
yep,
they're just not getting commanders really
yep,
often that come out. Like been playing Rurik Thar for however long that card's been out.
yep.
Not too many other
And
Gruul options.
which is like the best option in Gruul for the most part. Like,
Yeah,
I'm sure you could find some like Rogrock plus green lists. I mean, Rogrock's kind of just good in general because you get access to all your free spells, like,
yeah.
and you get access to both halves of Jessica's Will early on. But
Mm,
I don't think Rogrock plus Anara or
yeah,
Tana is all that good, you know.
yeah,
So no, Ragadraga looks really cool. Nira, I think with that cat, if you can fit it in an Animar shell or just any kind of teamer shell with cost reduction, I think that's why immediately Animar came to mind.
mm,
Because then you can just start recasting like your ancestral statues and stuff like that and go infinite. But yeah, no, I think Baldur's Gate is going to be maybe not like, I don't think it breaks anything by any
no.
means.
It'll be like a.
Um,
I think it'll be much less of a splash than like Commander Legends one. Like just doesn't have a Jeweled Lotus. Like already
right.
that was like an instant staple in most decks already, and like
Yep.
partner. We're already all playing partners, getting different. Like so. There's nothing as crazy I think coming out, but I think it will like solidify some of the maybe weaker archetypes that we have. Like I
Yeah.
said, getting a new Gruul commander that might be cEDH viable is really nice to begin with.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, if nothing else, I mean, no different than Winota, you in the command zone, you'll have an outlet for turning. I mean, and I think that's kind of a big thing with cEDH decks, right? That's why Selvala is really cool. She hits 2 of the 3 check boxes. She is card advantage and mana advantage in the command zone.
Mm.
And Ragadraga at least hits mana advantage
Hmm.
because turning your Elvish Mystic into a 3/3 that's going to untap when it
Yeah.
attacks is pretty good. And like you get to pressure life totals while also still preserving like your mana acceleration is
Hmm.
that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I'd be curious. I don't know how competitive you can make Ragadraga. It would be super cool if you can make him. Obviously, like I said, like you said, we're talking about Gruul.
Yeah.
Your combos include Kiki lines and like Snoop lines.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah,
for the most
some
part,
colorless
that's it.
stuff that really doesn't lean into what your colors do.
Right. So no, I'm excited for Baldur's Gate. I think it'll be fun. I don't think anything's pushing any. I'm excited to brew around like commanders with backgrounds. I think that's going to be just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, mostly in the casual space. I'm more interested in it because being able to do like, build this commander and have like half of a deck and then just do like a modular deck with different backgrounds. It's like, okay, I'll do it with blue this time with this background, red with this one. That stuff's really cool. Like a lot of them aren't like pushing power level from what I've seen. I think they've all been revealed at this point, the backgrounds and the commanders with it. None of them scream like, oh yeah, cEDH staple, but
yeah,
at least from what I can see so far. But yeah, they look like they're gonna be a lot of fun to brew. And I think the draft environment will be a lot more fun because that was something I did in Commander Legends like 3-ish times or something like that, and I didn't ever like it. I was hoping it would be good, but I
like too pushed almost.
it was just like something about the way it was balanced. I think every game was just incredibly grindy. At least all the ones I played. That's what I heard from other people too, that they were just super grindy and just like hard to get ahead, I guess. But I think they focused more on that with this, which I think they should, because drafting Commander is an awesome idea.
Yeah.
It's a good way to push draft, which they usually don't nowadays.
Yeah, no, I think my only complaint with Baldur's Gate right now is that stupid 2-mana bear that has like
it's like Wilson.
keywords.
Yeah, he's
Wilson, because he's uncounterable, reach, vigilance, trample, ward.
Yeah, he's like ward 3, or 2 or something. It's like
yeah, sure, he's just a 2/2 with 5 keywords.
Yeah.
And he has choose a background. So
yeah.
You're giving this 2-mana 2/2 the ability to maybe have like flying death touch and +3/+3. For 3 mana,
pretty awesome,
you're gonna have
because it is like by like like what we would normally consider broken for like a magic card. Like that is absolutely insane. And Commander, it's like you're gonna have to attack like 20 times with that with that 5/5 to win. But yeah, it is pretty crazy that we are just getting like, which I think is a good way to like if you want people to play with creatures, you kind of got to push them in a way that does the thing you want. Like, he's not a combo piece, he's like a crazy Voltron commander. So like if you want people to do Voltron, you got to give them, can't keep printing like, oh, it's a 2-mana 2/3 and he has ward, or like, oh yeah, it's good, but like it's not gonna get me really excited about, okay, this guy is a menace for Voltron, get it going.
No, that's fair.
In like if he was in standard, this is a standard legal set, I would be so annoyed with it's just unstoppable 2/2.
I do think he's got too many keywords, but that's fair. I mean, it'll be fine.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah. It's all in good fun. Well, yeah, it's been a really good talk with you. Got to talk about awesome movies, awesome cEDH lists. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Trentyn907. I'm usually just posting really bad takes about Dockside, or posting proxy stuff because I make proxies for fun. You can also find me at so I don't do the actual streaming. My buddy Bear Claymore, he is on Twitch and on Twitter at Bear Claymore. You can find me most Tuesdays and Fridays there playing cEDH. 90% of the time I'm playing Selvala. But yeah, you can find me there. Otherwise, I'm just on the Twitter sphere and hanging out, talking about Magic.
All right, thank you for coming on. It was a lot of fun talking with you. Thank you guys for watching.
For having me.
Oh yeah, it was great. Thank you guys for watching. If you've got some content creators or community members you think would be interested, tag them below. Maybe shout out to them on Twitter. Maybe we can get something going. Love having people on here to talk about horror movies, and we got a lot more of these lined up for you guys. Thank you guys for watching.